Today I'm talking to Telma Brito, and Telma is someone of many talents. Um, you are a podcaster, a teacher, you have a blog, and we're going to talk about all these things a little later on. But one of the things that I've picked up on and would like to explore more in this podcast together with you is about your passion for having a say and granting people the space to have a say, but obviously how that ties into moving countries. So I want to start with England. So the very first time that you came to England was as a holiday, I think. And but that set the tone for the life you live now. So I'd like you to share what brought you to England and what thought you had that triggered your whole latter move to the UK.
So yes, when I first came to the UK, I remember it was in 92, I believe. The only way I remember this is because no, sorry, 91, sorry. It was in 91. The only reason why I remember it was 91, I remember when Thelma and Louise came out, that film, that iconic film came out, and I was seeing my name everywhere. And I remember it was 91 and everybody was excited about this film. But the one thing I realized is all these nationalities, all of them together, tourists, residents here, all mingled together. It was so beautiful. And I was like, I love this. I love London for this. The multicultural city, everyone, it comes from anywhere. You don't know, even the people that live in this country, you don't know who they are because everybody just mingled together. The fluidity, I just loved it. I felt like I was part of it somehow. And somehow I wanted to be part of it. I wanted to be included. I wanted to be part of, sharing I'm half Portuguese, I'm half Guinean, so that's what attracted me to London in the first place.
Mm.
Yes, my mom has always liked the British history, the culture. She followed the royal family. You know, she's always was a dream of her to come and visit. And I think she had plans for us to stay there permanently, but because we already settled, in Switzerland and we speak French, she saw that, okay, you already speak French fluently. Now to take on England, she thought it was gonna be too much.
Mm.
So it was a nice time to come here anyway. I really loved it. I remember I have fond memories. And I used to ask my mom if we can come back again. And we did. That's something I remember we did.
So after that initial visit of experiencing England and seeing all the qualities that you did like, um, how did that contrast with your experience of your life at that time? Because you were a teenager and you were living in Switzerland. So what were your experiences in Switzerland that had you have the contrasting experience in the UK?
So actually, when in 91, I was actually 9 years old, first time I came here.
Oh, you were a
And
child. Mm.
yeah, I was a child. So when I was living in Switzerland, I arrived, I believe I was only 5 or 6, 4 or 5 years old. And up to that point, up to I was 9 years old before coming to England, I didn't have a very good experience. Only because I was, one of the only colored person in the class. I'm mixed race. I can't consider myself black. And obviously I can't consider myself white. So I was mixed race. And it was really hard to be in an environment where you don't feel accepted, that you feel judged, that you don't feel welcome, really. I mean, you have people looking at you, you can't speak the language, you obviously don't know about the culture. And the Swiss, they're not really inviting as well. They're not gonna be like, oh, let's teach you this. You need to learn this, you need to know those. So it wasn't really, they were very closed, they were not really open, I believe. And there was a time I just didn't want to be there anymore. I was like, I just don't want to be there anymore. And I think my mom, she compensated that with a love of traveling, which made me love traveling as well. But when I came to England, it was a great escape to all of this. It
Mm,
was like I even forgot at one point I was a tourist. I felt
mm,
part of London culture and everything. And I
mm.
also remember the one person I remember was Trevor McDonald. I've never seen a news how do you say, a journalist, a
Newsreader.
black
Mm,
journalist, a
mm,
newsreader. You never see that because back then we used to have French television channels and the Swiss one as well, and you would never in the 80s, 90s, you would never see that, non-existent. And when I saw somebody that looked like me on TV, again, I felt so connected. I was like,
mm,
oh, there are black policemen. You have, black, uh, uh, people like working the banks that are black. You have black newsreaders, and you feel so surrounded by so many people that look like me.
mm,
So obviously, when you're in Switzerland, you don't have that reference to fall back to. You don't have that, so it's quite hard to settle. It, it,
mm,
it took me a long time to settle, but to be honest with you, I don't think I ever felt settled there.
mm.
Sadly,
And you moved to Switzerland from a young age, but you'd already done a fair amount of moving for a small child. So
yeah.
talk me through the ages and the stages of your moves.
Okay, so I was born in Lisbon. Uh, so when I was born in Lisbon, uh, we had a happy life. Portugal is always going to be part of me. That will never change. That's my happy place. Whenever I travel, I always think first, if I can afford it, Portugal is a destination. It's just all these memories I cherish today. And my mom, being black, she didn't have a lot of, let's say, opportunities, and she tried to find other ways. So we moved from Lisbon to Madeira because of my dad's work, but also for my mom to find something for her to do. But at the time, her not being fully Portuguese, she didn't have the opportunities. So she really struggled in Portugal. She was a housewife, but she wanted more than that. She didn't want to just stay home and look after the children. She wanted to do more. And she decided Madeira, Lisbon, doesn't matter in Portugal. She just needed to leave the country. And she came with the idea to go to France at first because a lot of her relatives are in France. And she actually went there, but she wasn't successful because again, the racism that she faced, she didn't like it. And she had one person, I think a friend of her sister, was living in Switzerland at the time, and the person really sold it to my mom. Said, "Look, if you come here, you work. No matter where you work, you get a lot of money." So I think that's why I attracted my mom to go to Switzerland at first. But once
Mm,
she went there, she said she was really impressed about the lovely sightseeing, the lovely landscape. She just fell in love with Switzerland. So at one point, she forgot why she went there. She just loved, you know, the beautiful landscape. She learned quickly the culture because my mom, she had some knowledge of French already. So she spoke some French because she learned that in school. And because we couldn't go with her yet, and obviously in Portugal, my dad working as an architect too much. So she wanted us, me and my sister, to be placed somewhere that she can trust the person 150% because I was very young. I was about 2 years old. So this the plan was to go and live in Africa for 2 years, so Guinea Bissau, because my grandmother is there, my maternal grandmother is there, and my mom's sisters as well were there. So that was a natural place to go because you know it's a it's an African culture thing. So people will look after you as a family. But in Europe,
mm,
people don't have the time. They
mm,
don't really have the time to look after you. They can't. They have to think about their own lives, And in
mm.
Africa, it was quite a natural option, and we went there for 2 years to live there, and again learning a different culture because I went to school there for 2 years. I don't have very good memories of that because it was really strict,
Mm,
and I didn't really like that because I'm somebody with so much character, energy, and when you have people really, I mean, they try. I mean, from what I gather in Africa, they try to raise you to be independent at such a young age. They want you to be cleaning, cooking, like children at 4, 5 years old, they could take care of a household. My mindset wasn't that. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to go around and play. I wasn't thinking about cooking, cleaning. To be honest, I didn't care about that.
Mm,
But I had to care about that, otherwise I'll get punished. So
mm,
it was really tough 2 years whilst my mom was settling a life for us in Switzerland. And at one point I never thought my mom would pick us up because 2 years is a long time, especially when you're a child.
mm,
You don't know what's going on around you. Your mom calls you, but it's not the same as a human contact. Your dad calls you, but again, it's not the same. So you haven't got your parents there
mm,
and you don't know what's going on. So you're a bit lost. And people make you understand, like, look, you are, half, Guinean, but you're not considered as African. So it's a bit, I felt confused. My
mm,
4 years on Earth, I felt
mm,
really confused about a lot of things. And yes, it's just not being settled that really bothered me because I love Portugal. I didn't like moving to Africa, but I didn't have a choice. Now I understand it now, but I didn't have a choice. And then finally, the moment came when my mom sorted everything out, and she came to pick us up in Portugal. I was quite happy, to
mm.
see my mom foremost. I was really happy.
You were in Switzerland until you were a young adult, is that correct?
Yes, yes,
And um, this is why I'm asserting about the having your say being so important, because you were the one who decided that you would leave Switzerland and go to England, weren't you? Um,
yes.
and and had you tried to persuade your mum to leave Switzerland before then, or because you weren't particularly happy in Switzerland, you weren't particularly happy in Guinea Bissau, and you weren't particularly happy in Switzerland, were you?
No, I wasn't. I
Mm,
mean, if let's say if my experience in Switzerland was different, let's say right now at this moment I was living in Switzerland, things would be different in the 21st century. But in the 80s, you know, Geneva wasn't what Geneva is today. I
mm,
mean, everyone's saying to me, but Geneva is a place where there are so many headquarters of international organizations. Yes, but it's not the same as living there because those people, they come, they go to the meetings, they do what they have to do, and then they go back.
mm,
That's it. But for us that live there, that are residents there, it's a different story.
mm,
I couldn't speak the language when I went there. French, you can ask anybody. French is a hard language to have.
mm,
Even now, I still have the accent. I can't get rid of it. I was there since I was very young, and I'm sure I'll never get rid of my French accent. But when you don't feel like you belong there, when everyone is telling you, making you feel that you don't belong there, you're not going to be happy.
mm,
And I've tried to see the positive. I really tried. The landscape is great, but that's not enough. When you
mm,
have people that are basically saying, you don't belong here, you don't belong here, it is really hard.
mm,
So I did, when I was younger, I really was very sad and depressed. And the one person who understood me the most, my dad, he didn't like Switzerland from the get-go. He just didn't like it. He came as an architect with a diploma, with qualification, and they told him, right, to be an architect in our country, you have to redo all your education again. I have to say, I don't like the way my dad left us, but if it was me, I have all the qualifications. I've worked as an architect, for 20 years. And you're telling me I have to redo all of that? I wouldn't be happy either.
mm,
So from the get-go, he wasn't happy.
mm,
And as a white man, to make him feel like, look, you have to redo everything. I mean, the thing is not just because of that. I think it's the procedure in a way. But as even him as a white man, they didn't really make him feel welcome.
mm,
And as a Portuguese, the sad thing is in Switzerland, Portuguese people are known as being cleaners. So they told him, look, this is your place. You're Portuguese, this is your place. And he didn't like that. And he just left.
Mm.
he, After I think a couple of years, he just left. He said he couldn't do it. But so there was other stuff as well. He wasn't happy in a marriage. Things were not all right to my mom. But I think overall, the downfall of my parents' marriage was the move to Switzerland, and he just couldn't handle it. The coolness of the people, all these rules you have to abide to. He just didn't like it. But the difference is he could leave. I
Yeah.
couldn't.
Yes. And that's exactly my point, is that at that time you didn't have a say. You needed to be where you're essentially, in this situation, your mum chose for you to be. And at one point you tried to reunite with your father, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Because all my primary school life, I've been racially, physically, emotionally abused by my teachers. And at one point, you're going to explode. And I tried. I mean, my mom even put me to therapy because at one point I tried to be obedient. It didn't work. I tried everything. I mean, my mom really worked hard to get me to learn the language because at school, they wouldn't teach me. When I went to school, we had to learn the curriculum. That was it. They didn't have time to invest in me learning French. So already from the get-go, that didn't really work for me. And I really tried my best. And I did eventually learn French and everything. And also the departure of my dad, it really took a really toll on me. It was at a young age, it was really, really tough. So when I became a teenager, I rebelled. There was one point I'm like, you know what? I've been through all of this. Yeah, so I had some therapy before, but obviously it didn't really work because the thing is that even when I went to therapy, the problem was still there. I go and try and see a psychologist about what's wrong, why do I behave this certain way? Because at one point, I just wasn't listening, following instructions. I just wasn't. The one person I would listen to was my dad. My mom, she was so busy, not always there, but my dad was always there for me. So I didn't have that one key person that could, make everything better. So when I became a teenager, after awful experience in many primary school, because I got kicked out many, many times of primary school because I wasn't behaving. I mean, what do you expect when, people are known as you? Eventually, you're going to fight back. And I went to secondary school and I tried, to settle, but I don't know, something snapped. I don't know how it happened, but I certainly snapped. I became apparently one of the worst students they ever had. I had a head teacher that was quite supportive towards me, but again, the teachers, some of them, they were not nice to me. So I'm like, that even fuel my anger even more, remembering, oh, in primary school, they did that to me. And that started happening again. So I rebelled. And some of the poor teachers, they were on the receiving end. Some of them, when they raised their voice at me to do the right thing, I just took it as, okay, you telling me off. And so I went really in the wrong path. I had bad influence around me as well. And I do remember my mom, she contacted my dad to say, look, your daughter, she needs you right now. I tried everything. You are the one that can, talk to her. And when I spoke to him, he said, look, I understand you. I mean, hearing him after so many years, I was like, gosh, I said, I want to be with you. And he said, look, you know what? When you're on holiday, yeah, come and see me. Like, you know, and me, I took it as an invitation to, yes, of course, leave Switzerland, come and live with me. So I took it into that. So my mom was at breaking point because every time since my dad said that, oh, when you're on holiday, come and see me. So I was telling my mom, you can talk to me. I'm gonna live with my dad. I don't care what you say. Obviously I didn't say it in a nice way, but I was really awful to my poor mom. To one point, she said, you know what? And she didn't have a lot of money. She said, you know what, you wanna go and live with your dad? She paid me a one-trip ticket. I was so happy. I was like, oh, finally, I have a say. I'm leaving Switzerland. I'm leaving this awful place. So when I went to Portugal, I have to say, there was a lot of red flags that my mom knew was going to happen, but I didn't know. I was 13. I was like, oh, I finally get my wish to be with my father, to be with the one person that understands me, that can make all of this thing better. So when I went to Portugal, my grandmother from my father's side, and my father, they came to the airport to pick me up, and they didn't look happy, basically. So I was like, okay. And then we went to the house, and then I was excited. And then my grandmother, oh, what happened and things like that. What's been happening with you? And I'll explain, everything that's been happening in Switzerland, how I wasn't happy, how I'm happy to be home, like with them. And my dad basically told me straight away, I said, look, when I say you can come and see me on holiday, I meant that was that on holiday, not to you live with me, because I can't have you right now with me. I'm working, I'm traveling a lot. So he said that you must have mixed signals, and you living with me, that was a part of the plan. And he told me that, and I thought, okay, so it took me a while to get that rejection. Like, it took me at first I was still in a state of confusion. I just decided to pack everything and leave Switzerland for good. And then on the first night, I get that news. And my grandmother also said, look, you know what, you're gonna have to return to Switzerland. It was an awful time. Obviously I didn't want to return. I wanted to stay in Portugal. In fact, I wanted to stay with anyone. I was like, I didn't want to go back there. But at the same time, I didn't have a choice. I had no one else that can really look after me. So I had to go back to Switzerland. But it was an awful, awful time. When you're 13, you've been labeled as the worst student that you ever had. I ran away from home many times because I just wanted to escape Switzerland, basically. I didn't do it the right way. And when I got my wish come true, it turned out to be the worst thing that happened. So I had no choice but to return to Switzerland.
Yeah,
basically.
indeed.
Yeah.
But you did get to at that time, yes, you saw what you wanted and you couldn't pull it off. But you did pull it off when you came to England. And then you were
Yes.
a young adult, weren't you? And
Yes.
this time you masterminded this move entirely for yourself. So how did it go this time, now that you were in the driving seat and you were determined to make the move to the UK work?
So what happened was, the one thing with my mom that she did very well to try to compensate the fact that our dad left us, she kept us very busy. So we did a lot of after school clubs. We went to scouts. We went to many groups where we used to travel, because I like to travel. And I remember there was a program where you can go in England to a host family and learn English whilst staying in England. And she made us do that twice. So I went to Colchester, I went to Margate. And I remember in the summer of 99, I was 17. And I remember the host family I had. Wherever I go, I feel like trouble follows, because I had another host family I had before. It didn't work out somehow. And they said, look, we can't have you here. So somebody else accepted me. And I remember there was one day I was there on the table and we were eating. I was crying at the person. She was such a sweet woman. She came to me. She said, what's wrong, Telma? And I said, look, I'm so happy in the UK, no matter certain things that are happening, but I don't want to go back to Switzerland. I said, I want to stay in the UK for good. And the thing is, with my poor English, I don't know how she understood what I said. And she said to me, look, Telma, you are 17, but this is what you want. What are you willing to do to get it to come in the UK? Because I said to her, it's impossible. My mom is gonna say no, and how am I gonna start my life? I was telling her, but how am I gonna do this? Leave Switzerland, something I've known for 15 years. How am I gonna come here? And I said, this is different. Like, I came here as a student, so now as a resident, it's different. And she said to me, but you are there, you want something, and you're having so many excuses. She said, if you really want something so badly, you need to just do it. And I said, you know what? She's right. So when I came back after that summer in Margate, I told my mom when I landed, I said, look, mom, I want to leave Switzerland for good. My poor mom, she just wanted to say, welcome home. And I'm like, I actually want to leave. I want to go back. And then when we came home, she said, okay, is this what you really want? I said, yes, I want to leave Switzerland. And if it was up to me, I would have left when I was 17. I wanted to leave. But she said, look, I don't mind you leaving, but here's my condition. You need to finish your education here. And I said, oh, I don't need it. I can't do it there. She said, no. If I were you, I'll finish it here. If you want to carry on your studies, then as an adult, you can go and finish it there. So what she's trying to say, I need to finish my secondary school because that can help me in the UK. But in fact, when she was telling that, I was like, I'm surprised that she's allowing me to leave. I thought she's going to say, no, you're not allowed or whatever. But at the same time, when I asked her recently, like, why did you let me go? Like, I'm a young woman, 17. I had this idea. Why did you say yes? And my mom was right. She said, but I know you would have done everything. I said, I prefer you leaving like safely than you running away to England and not knowing where you are, what's going on. So I said, okay, I understand what you're saying. That makes sense. So I did what she asked me. I did finish, she said that you have to make sure as well, not just to finish, but you have to make sure you have your qualifications. So there's actually two things she said you
Two
have to do.
conditions.
Finish two conditions, but she made it like into one, but I had to finish my education and have the qualification. So I'm gonna be honest, I used to be lazy, but this is the one time that I worked my butt off to just have my qualification. And when I got my diploma, she actually paid me the ticket. She said, "No, what? Yes, you did it." And before we even came, we spoke to some relatives, people that can help me and everything. So that was so supportive of her to, accept my decision. I think she'd rather see me happy than miserable for the rest of my life. She said, look, she said, and it's not for you. Despite everything, I'll be grateful for everything I learned there, but I wasn't happy there. I mean, I made friends for life, but again, I wasn't happy there. And I'm so happy that she actually helped me to come to the UK. So we did research, we came, visited places, tried to set me up. Look, how do I get work? How do I get started and everything? So she really did help. She helped me immensely, and I'll never forget her for that. And I remember before I left Switzerland, I've sent a letter to the couple in Margate to say that, look, after a couple of years, you're right. I wanted it to happen, but I didn't know what to do. And then, yes, spoke to my mom. All of it happened. So I said thank you as well for that talk, because you were the first people that actually disclosed that I wanted to leave. And I say also thank you for your kindness, because you showed me that, as a white couple, you didn't care where I'm from. You just were so nice. Because in that family, I was again the only person of color again. So I like the fact that they didn't look at that, and I said that you guys were the factor of me coming to this country, being accepted for what I was, not looking, at my ethnicity and my nationality. And I said thank you for that as well.
And
Yeah.
and did they get the letter? Did they reply?
Yeah, they did reply to me. That's the last letter, because they were quite elderly as well. So I will forever be grateful for them, for the kindness, the warmth, and the encouragement, because that was a big decision at 17 to say, look, I want to leave to another country. I want to move for good. And this time, that was my choice. No one would tell me otherwise. And my mom was right. If I didn't speak, like, she didn't allow me, I would have found ways to come here by myself, or I would have found any ways. It wouldn't have been the right and healthy way and safe way to come.
No.
So, yeah.
And the way in which you did come, given that you did do following through on your mum's two conditions,
Yeah.
but given how much you were so keen to leave Switzerland and so eager to live in the UK could have disappointed you. So how was that transition? Did it disappoint you, or did it live up to your expectations?
It's a very tricky question, because when I came here, that was in 2001, August 2001. When I came here, my expectation went through the roof. For the first time, I'm on my own. I don't have my mom telling me what to do. So I was free spirited. I could go out, I could do things and things like that. But the one thing I'd say, to get settled in any country you go, it is really, really hard. You have to get, here you have to get a national insurance number. For that, you have to work first. I couldn't speak the language very well. So it took me a while to get settled. And I did manage to get a job. And I also managed to go to school. So the school that was sorted, that's one thing that the priority was for me, to learn English. that was sorted. And I had a lot of people telling me, no, 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 don't worry about school. You need to work. You need to work. You need to work. So many ideas. But the one thing I remember, how can you, you know, just think about work if you don't speak the language? And also, I don't want to do just any type of jobs. So I just thought, you know what, I'm going to follow my instincts and definitely ensure that I learn English fully. And I did that, and I'll keep to my promise. But it was hard at the beginning. I mean, in the first 6 months, I became homeless out of nowhere. My auntie literally kicked me out. She said, look, you can't live with me anymore. It was hard. Like, when you have this expectation, you're so happy, a new life in the UK, and you become homeless out of nowhere, that was awful. The first year was really eventful. And I have to say, I thought about returning to Switzerland. But at the same time, I tried to prove Switzerland wrong. Like, listen, I'm not going back to you. No matter what I'm going through here, I'm not going back. Because I said, I made that decision. It took so many sacrifices to come here. And I said, I will not give up without a fight. So it was tough. The first 6 months here was really tough. Going to college, being homeless, it was, living from sofa to sofa, it was really, really tough. So yeah, it was a rude awakening, let's say. Yes, it was. And I do remember what hurted me the most is that the people that my mom knew here, the relatives, well, the long relative, I would say, they had this presumption of Switzerland. They say, oh, why are you living here miserably homeless? Why don't you return to Switzerland? Because over there, life, from what I heard, you can get money, you can get this and that. And that's the thing. So many stereotypes. People don't realize that what you see Switzerland is not what I lived. So you can't, you don't know if you haven't lived through it. But also I think it's an aspect is the jealousy as well. Some people see you like in their turf. So they don't really want to help you, if that makes sense. So at the beginning, it was hard to having people to actually help you out. It was really, really tough to have genuine people helping you out. So at the beginning, it was really hard. And I remember my mom, because at the beginning, I didn't reveal the truth. I was like, oh, everything is going all right. But then I say, no, I have to tell the truth. I can't pretend. I can't lie to her. But I think at the end, we tried to work it out because I was like, you know what? I feel like an hypocrite. She's not happy, not because of Switzerland, but the fact that I wasn't there because me and my sister were always together all the time. So imagine a person so close to you leaves. You obviously want to go to that person. And at one point, my mom couldn't deal with her anymore. She said, look, one day she called me, she said, look, Telma, I know your situation is not easy, but your sister, she really misses you and she's not happy here. And seriously, I'd rather her be with you. At least the two of you can sort things out. She wasn't just shifting her like, you know what, I can't deal with her, you deal with her. It was like, she said, look, I tried everything and she wants to come to England no matter what. So you guys find a way to sort things out together. At the end, we managed to sort it out. But I was like, at one point, I said to my mom, you know what, if she wants to come so badly, let her come because I know what it feels like. I felt exactly the same way. So who am I to tell her that, look, don't come yet? No, just come. You want to leave? Just leave and come here. Basically, that's what we had to do. Yeah.
And you said that you couldn't even look after yourself, never mind help someone else. But
Yeah.
that has become very important to you in life, hasn't it? You do everything you do is actually in service of other people. So that might have been how it was then, but that's not
Yeah.
how it is now. And
Yeah.
so it, all these experiences seem to have culminated into how you've decided to shape your life in England. And you do a lot of work with students to empower them to be heard and to have their say. So how influential do you think your personal experiences have been to shape you into being that person where you want to give back to young people?
So I have to say again, when I was a student, I was looking for role models. Like, what happens after you finish secondary school, and there was not enough of that talk. I mean, we had people obviously coming sometimes to give us talks, but I couldn't relate to them. If that makes sense. We had people, again, people in high positions, but I was thinking, but not all of us are going to do that. The one thing I remember in Switzerland is either you work in a bank or for insurance. What about other people that don't want to work in bank insurance? What about people that want to be, I don't know, writers, comedians, or things like that? How about them? We can't all be bankers and work in insurance because we live in Switzerland. That's so I do remember that we didn't the lack of opportunities, like creative opportunities, other opportunities in general. And I was told as well by my teachers that there's no way I will basically amount to anything because I was terrible as well. And they said there's no way I'll ever, achieve much in life. And then when working in schools I am now, I see a lot of people, that's how they must feel. Obviously, teachers, I'm sure they're not allowed to, as a teacher, you're not allowed to say that to a student. Otherwise, you get sacked, and rightfully so. You can't talk like that to students. But I was thinking, how about those who have, special needs? How about those who are not doing well in the GCSE and they know they're not going to do very well? How about these people? Because if you're GCSEs, that sort of guarantees you, oh, you're set for life. You're gonna be okay. What about those that don't have the GCSEs? And I remember I had some of my guests that said to me before even the podcast, they said, "Look, Telma, I don't think I'm gonna be a good role model for students." I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "Oh, I went through prison, or I went, I never gone to school. I quit school. I didn't like school, whatever." I said, "But look at you today. Don't worry about that the fact that you did overcome your challenges to become who you are today. We need people like that. I'm not just talking about people that are successful in life. I want to talk about people that are inspiring, people that young people today be like, you know what, I'm good with my hands. I can do that, so I don't need to worry too much about my GCSEs. Or, I am creative. I've got ADHD, but I like music. So things like that. I say, look, that's what I'm looking for. And I had a lot of people tell me, look, I've got ADHD. I don't know what I'm thinking sometimes, but I'm just writing. I said, but again, you're using your ADHD in a creative way. I'll try to give back to students that might go on the wrong path in life, might feel like they are not doing well in school and they don't have opportunities like everyone should, and also those who are successful. So I'm trying to offer this opportunity for a range of people that I didn't have when I was younger, because I feel like when people came to see us, oh, you have to work hard in school, you have to have the qualification, then that's it. But again, my question was, but what about if you don't have this qualification? So what then? What about those that are not going to have it? So that really was something that inspired me to do this podcast.
And is your podcast targeted specifically at the students you work with, or any young person?
For me, it's targeted really for any young person. It's not just for my students, because I feel like as young people, they're all in the same boat. They all try to figure out, right, in secondary school. I mean, obviously, if you're in year 7, you still like enjoying life, but especially those year 10, 11s, I think they're the ones who worry about the future. And a lot of them, when I was working as a trainee in a school, one of them said, look, miss, I don't want to leave school. Like literally, I'm worried about, I'm in year 11 and I'm worried about life after school. And I said, but why do you worry? I said that there's a great adventure in life. I said, you're young. You have so much time to think about what you want to do, where you want to go. So I said, don't worry, you're young. And I said to them, before I became a teacher, I did so many jobs. Before it was to make ends meet. And I had plans. Oh, I wanted to be a vet. I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to be this and that. So I said that you guys are young. You'll figure something out. That's also what this podcast is about, for them to see me as well. Like, I did so many things. So it's not right. I'm going to do this and that's it. So it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to have one job and working on your dreams. So you see, I'm trying to really offer access for young people to see what life holds. And I said to them, look, trust me, you need to live your life to the fullest. Don't need to worry too much about that. You have to be happy first. really. That's why you have to think about happiness.
And
Yeah.
do you come across young people who have moved countries and have gone through similar experiences to you? And who, because obviously moving countries, you talked about adventure, moving countries at whatever age is in effect an adventure. But like all adventures, it doesn't make it easy, just like your own experience, it can be very tumultuous and painful. So have you inspired people who relate to you, who relate to the journey, the literal journey of moving countries, and where they begin to settle in whichever country they're either in or choose to go to?
So I have met that's one thing I like about the UK. I met so many people who moved to the UK, and a lot of them, I have a lot of inspiring stories. They just move, for better opportunities. But some of them, sadly, it's not for that. It's just because the country is a war-torn country. I have a student from Ukraine at the moment. I have students that come from Syria, Iraq, and again, the language barrier, that's how I identify with them straight away. Because for me, the one thing I like straight away in the UK, we have EL, English as a second language. And they have support. They definitely have support that I didn't have.
Mm,
And there are so many. The one thing I like about the UK, especially in London, the education system that I've looked so far, they really are integrating those children in. They really try to make them discover the British culture, to make them familiarize with some key language. So they really make them feel welcome and wanted. That's one thing I love about London. So I do
mm,
identify a lot with them in that aspect.
mm,
But when I hear some of the students, what they had to go through, and sometimes I feel like, gosh, okay, going through racism is not great, but at the same times, I'm okay. I don't have to worry about my safety. So I look about some of the students, especially those who are very challenging, who have a very challenging behavior, and some of them I relate to, and I don't know how. I have ways with students, especially those who are challenging, and sometimes some of my colleagues they say, "Oh, how do you do it?" And I say, "Look, sometimes you just have to listen to them, what they have to say, because we are quick to judge. Oh, we label them, oh, they're terrible, but what exactly did that person went through?
mm,
What exactly is the person going through at the moment?" And I said that, do you guys know what it's like to be in a country all the time there's war? Because I don't know. And I hear what they had to go through. And that was awful. That
mm,
you wake up, there's bombing going on, you don't hear some relatives again. So obviously, if you haven't got through some therapy or some counseling, obviously you're gonna be emotionally messed up, washed up. So what do you
mm,
expect? So we have to look after these people at the end of the
mm,
day. They are in our care as a school. We're not just there to educate, they are in our care. We have to do something about it.
mm,
And it really, I love those stories, especially those who come from Muslim country. It really breaks my heart, it really
mm,
does. It's not easy. You can't think about education when you have this going on as well. It's really hard.
mm,
And I've got to say that they made me realize I didn't have it too bad. Sometimes I'm like, oh, this happened to me, this happened to me. Then I'm like, well, look at what happened to them.
mm,
So sometimes they made me feel like privileged, like, you know what, I'm here today. You know, the racism that I went through, all the things I went through in Switzerland, I would take that any day compared to what they had. So I do
mm,
understand,
mm,
sometimes some of them they didn't have a choice coming to the UK. I mean, English, let's be fair, it's a universal language. It's easier to come to the UK than it would be to go to Germany, for instance, or to France. That's because of the language. So I
mm,
think a lot of people come here because of that, the language, I think.
mm, mm.
So yeah.
And given the advice you were given was if you really want to make something happen, then do what you need to do to make it happen. Do you find you're saying similar things to the young people that you're talking to, or do you think the circumstances are different? That well, obviously you have to say what's appropriate to each and every individual person, but I just am
Mm.
curious, do you find yourself sharing the similar piece of advice, or is your advice quite varied.
So I do give this type of advice. There are some people that are really, I really advise them, look, you need to find your inner peace, like especially some that I come from war-torn countries. You know, they don't think about careers, they don't think about things like that. And they really think about relatives at home, the country, the situation of the home country. So I said, look, you have to really find your inner peace. And I said, I know what you're going through. Must not be easy. And one person said, but how would you know? And I said, well, the only thing I can say is that my mom come from Guinea Bissau, and in the late 90s, they went through civil war. And I remember how my mom was every day calling relatives, but sometimes the phone wasn't working. And we saw the news. And I said, in a sense, I know what it's like. I haven't lived in the country at that moment, but I experienced what you've experienced. So I said, I do know what you're talking about. Don't think I'm just telling you this for the sake of this. So I do say to them, like, seriously, find your inner peace first. Find a way to make yourself feel happy. Seek help, you know. And I like that some of my students, this person's my former student, that every time things don't work in the class, oh, I'm gonna go to Miss Diaz. That's how they call me in the school. And me, my class is, you know, I make myself available, even though work as a teacher, you're busy up to your eyeballs. But when you have a child coming to you for help, I feel like the priority comes to the child. Forget the lessons. The person comes to you for advice, for a moment. So you have to give that to that person. And sadly, I never had that. I never had that person in school where I could have gone to say, look, this thing is happening. I didn't have that. So I'm thinking, I always felt like I want to be the adult that I wanted when I was a young person. And I'm so glad I can provide that. And for people like that, I really wish, you know, I could advise them more, but again, not living through it. I do ask for advice. I say, what would you say? What would you, you know? And I said to the school, is there any way we can offer some therapy? Is any help, anything that we can do to help them, because they need the help. You know, they come to school, it's safe. They don't come there to learn. As obviously you can see that they come, you know, to be with people, to be surrounded, to be loved.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
That's a
being
pleasure.
here and sharing the adventure of, you know, which hasn't always been an easy road, but one that sounds that it's now a very rewarding experience for you and your family.
Yes, definitely was. I mean, I was somebody that always knew what I wanted. The one trick with me was to get it, but I learned to be like, look, if you want something so bad, you need to make sacrifice. You need to make things happen. And it's true. When I was a child, I always get what I wanted. I wouldn't say I was spoiled, but you know, when you're assertive, you know what you want. You usually get it. And England was it. So I'm happy. 22 years now I've been here. Wait, I can't count. Is it 22 or 23? 23rd
23.
year. 23 years here. I never thought I'll be here as long as I have. So I'm quite grateful for the way the British people made me feel, you know, welcome, like interested about my background. And also when I talk about Switzerland, my experiences, talk about, well, I was born in Portugal, but Guinea Bissau, they were so fascinated about my many, you know, cultures. They're quite fascinated with that. And when I applied for my British passport, I was so proud when they said, "Oh, we got Telma Brito from Portugal." That made me really proud. I was like, "Oh wow, that's fantastic!" And that's one thing as well that I've got to say. I am happy here. I don't see myself anywhere else. Right now, I don't see myself anywhere else. I quite like the weather's not great, but everything else is.
Yeah,
That's the one thing. So I can't complain about that, you know. So yeah.
very good. Well, thank
Yeah.
you for sharing all your thoughts and journey with me today. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.